Okay, welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. Thank you for joining us. All right, I hope everybody is staying safe. I hope you're practicing the good sanitation. I hope you are staying at home. I hope you are trying to be healthy. I hope the stress levels in your family are going down. Make sure you're not fighting with your spouse. You're not getting easily irritable. I know it's difficult to do that, but in these days, you have to do that. You have to really stay under control because, as we've talked about, your immune system is very, very sensitive to your emotional state, your mental state, your physical state. And by the way, lockdown doesn't necessarily mean you have to be confined to the four corners of your bedroom. It also, you need to be getting outside from time to time, exposing your body to the sun. And remember why we said you need to expose your body to the sun: vitamin D, amongst other things. You need to exercise. You need your lungs need to constantly be expanding and contracting, because, as we know, COVID-19 specifically targets the lungs. And so the healthier your lungs are, the more elastic your lungs are, the more you're moving your lungs, the better and healthier your lungs will be. And having said that, it doesn't mean that you guys should start going out in groups. I mean, I drive around town from time to time because of my work with NTA. I also work with the military, so I have a defense pass. So I'm allowed to move around. But I see all these young people, especially early in the morning, you're all in groups, all singing and shouting, and you're all no face masks on. I mean, what in the world? And you got to remember this. You have to be aware that somebody amongst you may have the virus. I may not be showing symptoms, but it may have the virus and may pass it from person to person. Don't go in groups, for heaven's sake. Go in twos and maintain your social distance. If you are going to go in groups, you must have your masks on. Please, this is week 3. At the time we're recording this, and I don't want it to go any further than week 4, please. And, I can move around, but I can't get to see my friends much because their wives won't let them get out of the house, and they won't let me in the house. So it isn't much fun. Let's get this thing over with. Obey what the NCDC says. Obey what the Ministry of Health says. Obey Mr. President, for Pete's sake. All right? But having said all this, I have to say that it hasn't been all that bad. Quite frankly, I've been really, really surprised at how not so severe COVID-19 is in Nigeria as compared with the rest of the world. And I've said this a couple of times before. You've probably heard me. Going by the numbers that we've seen in the US, the UK, Italy, and Spain, we were waiting for a tsunami. And that tsunami just hasn't come. In fact, I'm thinking now, recently, the governor of Lagos State threw an Easter party for the medical staff and for the patients, and everybody was out dancing and singing in an isolation wing, in an isolation ward. That isn't happening much in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, I can tell you that for a fact. So people are not really as sick as we would have expected them to be, and a lot of credit goes to the healthcare professionals and the workers taking care of them in the isolation centers. I mean, there's a lot of symptomatic treatment, giving them a lot of fluids and drugs and all that. But nevertheless, it is so much less in numbers, in magnitude and severity than what we've seen in other parts of the world. And yes, there have been some deaths, and those are very, very unfortunate, but still much less. And it points me to, when I think about it, I think it's either one of two things. Either one, the virus for some reason has mutated for the sake of Nigerians and Africans. It's like the virus looks at Nigerians like, oh my goodness, these guys are suffering so much. They're having to deal with Lassa fever. They're having to deal with a python, or was it an anaconda? I don't know. A python that swallowed 34 million naira. Another gorilla swallowed a lot of money. And they're dealing with all kinds of stuff here and there. And it's like, let me give these guys a break. Let's not make this as serious for them. I don't know. That could be it. The second option is what I call the 2 C's. It could be the climate. It could be our constitution. And some researchers are looking into the fact that we as Africans, as Nigerians, we've been exposed to a lot of bugs, bacteria, viruses over the years. I mean, we're always dealing with malaria and typhoid fever, for instance, dysentery, cholera, all those other things are still sort of big around here. And the fact that our food, maybe the kind of food that we've eaten has, the combination of all these things have helped us develop a microbiome. We've described that in other videos. Go to our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org, and you see all the older videos there. But it could have been just the microbiome and our bacterial content that helps us or gives us a greater resistance to the virus. Who knows? That could be it. So climate and our constitution. Whatever it is, it's I'm happy for it. However, we need to constantly stay on top. We need to constantly stay aware and hyper vigilant. Remember, you want to reduce your alcohol intake, you want to reduce your smoking, you want to reduce your sugar intake. A lot of sugar is in foods that we take. The swallows. I know I'm stepping on toes, but the swallows are a big problem. So if you're taking this size, reduce it by half or something. So, and then make sure you move around, make sure you walk, because all those things factor into whether or not your immune system will be ready and be able to deal with the virus should you, God forbid, should you get infected by it. And quite frankly, a lot more people are infected by it than we know. So be aware, stay on guard, watch out for it. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So as you know, December 31st was when China finally admitted to the world that there was a problem and COVID-19 was eventually born. And it didn't become a pandemic until a few weeks later, which in my estimation and in many people's estimation was a mistake. It should have been declared a pandemic a lot earlier so people could have gotten ready. Now, here are some of the trends we want to talk about. When we first started hearing about COVID-19, we thought it was something that strictly affected older people and that it specifically targets the lungs and that other diseases weren't really that big a deal. But this knowledge has evolved, and as we've come to understand how the virus works more and more, we see that there's a lot more to it. Now, for instance, we now know that men in some cases have a much higher rate of death rate than women do from COVID-19. In fact, in some countries, Italy, for instance, is 64%. 64% of all deaths are in men. In China, too, it was something close to that. Other countries, too, were seeing some significantly higher than what women were experiencing. And when we started looking at China, the first thought was, well, Chinese men, 50% smoke. And then 2% of women smoke in China, and so that's probably the reason again, because it's a lung disease, and so COVID-19 targets the lungs and smoking compromises the lungs. But we've seen that it's a lot more than that now. For instance, now we're seeing that people with diabetes, people with hypertension, people with asthma, another lung disease, people who are smoking, people who have, what's the word now, obesity, yes. Morbidly obese people all seem to be falling prey or seem to be more prone to dying earlier, even among the young people. And we're seeing younger and younger people have the disease. And that all points to an underlying factor, which many now see as inflammation, or a better term would be a pro-inflammatory state. In other words, the body is more prone to being inflammatory, and we've explained that in some of our videos in the past. Again, go back to our website. There's a video on inflammation. There are two videos on inflammation. I think there's a video on the immune system. So inflammation, if the body is more prone to be inflammatory, I wish I could explain this better. Maybe in another session I'll explain that further. But these diseases, these chronic diseases, tend to make you more inflammation prone, or more pro-inflammatory, making it easier for your body to react. And by the way, this will shock you, but what kills people the most is not the virus itself, although of course the virus plays a part. But what kills people the most is your body's reaction, sometimes hyper reaction, sometimes over-exaggerated reaction to the presence of the virus in the body. Check it out. read about it, you see that it's a really a big factor. All right. Another trend that we are seeing is that blacks are more likely to die from the disease than white people are. Remember when this thing first started, they were saying that black people, oh, we're exempt, we're something different, that we're okay, but not so. In fact, I think we should show a video. But they're seeing significantly especially in the U.S., significantly higher rates of black deaths than white deaths, and some people are pointing to the fact that the blacks tend to have higher rates of diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease. Another one, they're more obese too. Those are the four major factors they look at, and of course, there's a lot of talk about black people not having as good access to healthcare as the white people do. I'm not saying it's a racist thing, but that's just the fact that we're seeing. So these people tend to die a lot more. Now, interestingly enough, like I said earlier, it doesn't happen as much in Nigeria. In fact, I think we're doing pretty well compared to the blacks in the U.S. So it has to do, I think, with our climate and our constitution. There's a video that Dr. Oz kind of did a quick research on that. So I will let you see that briefly. And we'll be right back.
Could more men be dying because of behavioral differences like these?
It's very difficult to disentangle the sex-specific effects. More men smoke than women. Men have different types of exposures. Many men don't take as good care of themselves as women do. But there also is a sex-specific effect that we see prior to menopause, which means that women respond better to vaccines. They also respond better with infectious illnesses of different types. That difference between men and women disappears after menopause. It appears to be associated with estrogen.
Well, let me share this theory because it's fascinated me with the audience. This is an idea of why COVID-19 may be hitting men harder than women, and it has to do with our genetic differences. While men have X and Y chromosomes, as you all know, females have two X chromosomes. Now, why does that matter? It turns out the Y chromosome is like nothing. Right? It should have been an X to truly be powerful. And because the X chromosome contains important immune system genes, having two could theoretically give women a big advantage. So don't mock those mom genes. Another big difference between Mars and Venus, by the way, is that men produce more testosterone while women produce more estrogen. So Italy is one of the countries keeping track of diagnoses and deaths from coronavirus based on gender. Now, we know they found that male deaths were twice as high as females. In France, reportedly, 60% of their fatalities are male, and in China, it's 64%. So how important is it, Dr. Lipkin, for the United States to begin tracking more clearly male and female differences and make those numbers public when gender is concerned?
We are tracking these kinds of numbers, and as they come in, I'm sure they will be released. The question is, what are we going to do with this information? I don't think, for example, that we're going to recommend that men start taking estrogen. I mean, this is just something that's part of our biology and what makes it different.
Welcome back. One of the things that have baffled healthcare professionals and researchers in this whole COVID-19 thing is the fact that the traditional approach to respiratory distress, there's a term called ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is what kills people with severe respiratory problems like pneumonia and all that. And one of the things that have baffled us is that ventilation seemed to work for ARDS. So once you get the ventilators, if it becomes too severe, the patient is gasping for breath, all you need to do is intubate, put that tube in, and then start helping the patient breathe, and that usually helps. What we're finding out is that 50 to 60, in some cases 90% of all patients that they put on ventilators with COVID-19 don't seem to improve. In fact, the death rate is high amongst those. It's almost like when the person qualifies for a ventilator, it almost means it's a death sentence in many parts. And so there was a lot of cry. You might have been watching CNN when Chris Cuomo was talking about, we need ventilators, we need ventilators. And it's like, well, we need ventilators. And it's crying about for it. And yes, ventilators have their place and they can work. But that wasn't the whole story, because we're now finding out that the problem wasn't confined to the lungs. We actually began to see problems in the brain, problems in the kidneys. As a matter of fact, the number says that 80% of people, the severe cases, also had renal shutdown, which is kidney damage, kidney failure. And this is perplexing. And some people are now still talking about the blood vessels, the blood cells themselves being affected by the virus. So it's looking more like a systemic condition. And that brings us to the word, or that brings us to the term cytokine storm. And yes, it's every bit as sinister as it sounds, probably even more so. So I'm going to go onto the board and I'm going to draw a few things and explain it to you. Okay, so I have on the board in the center the lungs, which is where the virus attacks, as we all know. What happens, as I've explained in another video, an earlier video, is that the body reacts to that virus, the immune system specifically. So it sends a signal not only to the red blood cell, not only to the lungs, but to all over the body. So that's why the term, you remember the term, what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas, right? So what happens in the lungs doesn't stay in the lungs. It's like as the body is trying to fight the virus here, the signals are sent throughout the body. And it seems like, again, those signals are not well received, especially when the immune system is weak. And so it's almost like it's counterintuitive. The body starts to attack, or the cells just become haywire and start to attack, not just the viruses, but they tend to attack other organs as well. A lot of cytokines, inflammatory molecules, are released by the white blood cells. They travel all over the body and they cause damage. They start attacking organs and tissues that had no business in the fight whatsoever, not related to the lungs whatsoever. And that, my friends, is what causes the death and what kills people. And one of the things that we are finding out that helps to dampen that cytokine response is, believe it or not, vitamin D. Having higher levels of vitamin D in your body already before the problem starts will be hugely effective. Also, we're finding out that the microbiome, having what we've said before, the good bacteria, having a very good mix of diverse kinds of bacteria and other microbes in your gut and in your body, would help to temper that immune response. In other words, it'll put the brakes, so that what happens in the lungs stays in the lungs and is just controlled and doesn't affect other organs in the body. All right, welcome back. So the other day I was at H-Medics. I was going to get some medication, I guess, and then in the car park, this lady calls out to me. She was in the car, so she asked me, "Doctor, please come." So I go over. I guess she recognized me from TV station, from the TV show. So she brings out some medications and she's like showing me, asking me what I thought, what she needed, how much she needed to take, and I was kind of like patiently taking her through and advising her on it. And then finally she brought out her vitamin D, and on the label it said 1,000 IUs of vitamin D. And I was like, you're going to need to take 10 of each pill to get the 10,000 that you need. And she was like, oh, so I kindly explained to her and kind of took her through some of the things we talk about here. And honestly, quite frankly, I wanted to tell her, listen, can I see that bottle? I would have taken that bottle and throw it away. Because it's like that, what do you do with 1,000 international units? You need 10,000 international units at the basic minimum per day. Now, after the COVID-19, you can do whatever you want, right? But at this point, you want to take, this has been reproduced, it has been researched extensively, probably more than any other vitamin or mineral vitamin D has. And they are saying, and these are white people saying this, that you need at least 10,000. We showed this video last week. You need 10,000 a day. Now, if a white person needs 10,000 a day, you can be very sure that a black person will need like twice that. Believe me, we don't get enough vitamin D, and they've checked vitamin D levels around the world. Black people's vitamin D levels are the lowest. In some cases, the vitamin D levels are in the toilet. So our vitamin D levels are really, really low compared to the rest of the world, which is one of the reasons. And if you watch our videos, why blacks die first. It's one of the reasons why we have such higher levels of strokes, hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease, and so on and so forth. So it's really, really important that you pay attention to this. I mean, as for me and my family, as for me and my house, we're going to take 10,000 international units, no questions, 10,000. And it's rare that you find somebody really telling you about doses, and that's because vitamin D has such a wide safety margin. You would have to go into the millions to even have any sort of toxicity. Anyway, so having said that, of course, we want to talk about zinc as well. One of the reasons why zinc is so effective is that zinc is one of the few minerals that disrupts the virus's replication. What viruses want to do, all they want to do is reproduce themselves. Zinc disrupts that process. And in fact, a quick tip, one of the reasons why hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine are so useful is because hydroxychloroquine opens the door in the virus, or in the cells in which the viruses are. Hydroxychloroquine opens the door for the zinc to enter the cells. So there's a lot more to be said about that, and we'll probably be saying more about this on other videos as well. But the producers are telling me to shut up, to keep quiet. We have to move. We have to end the show very soon. So we're going to end by saying this: you need vitamin C, you need zinc, you need vitamin D. You need to be taking them consistently, whether you feel anything or not, so that the levels can be at the right level. Vitamin D, they say you need to be in the 40 to 60 nanograms per deciliter range. 40 to 60. Most of us are in our 20s. So you need about 40 to 60. Test it. The thing is, it's expensive. It's about 25,000 naira where you find it. So it's not easy to get. But you've got to stay aware. I find that most Nigerians are very careless about their health, especially men. So you have to stay aware. This is not over yet by any stretch. There's still a lot to be done. We still have to be vigilant, and we still have to take care of our health. And with that, I'm going to have to say thank you for listening, and we will get back with you later on. And please stay tuned. The updates are coming up regularly. So you can go to our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org. Again, thank you. God bless. Stay safe.